Watch this.
Unrest within the Boise Police Department. Nearly a dozen officers have filed complaints against Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee, alleging a hostile work environment that pushed longtime officers out of the department. Ahead, we will hear from BPD officers about issues they see, and we have reaction from Boise's mayor about complaints involving Lee. In Idaho, landlords do not need to accept third-party payment for rent, and some here in the Treasure Valley aren't. They say they want reliable tenants. But landlords won't talk to us about their side of the story. We're asking why. And you can almost vote. We'll tell you about ballots going out now for the November general election. 7 investigates got their hands on this memo, and it was recommended in this memo that Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee be put on administrative leave. But after this memo came out, he was not. The head of Boise's Office of Police Accountability wrote the memo to Mayor McLean on April 5th of this year. Investigative reporter Alexandra Duggan spoke with some officers who spurred the writing of the memo, and that memo to McLean and her chief of staff says that Chief Lee should be placed on paid leave, pending an investigation into internal complaints filed by 9 Boise police officers. It was recommended that a third party investigate the complaints to give them another set of eyes. It was also recommended that officers be interviewed again after their initial complaint interviews. But some officers tell Duggan they were never interviewed again, and they believe their concerns were ignored. KTVB investigative reporter Alexandra Duggan shares the story.
Boise's Office of Police Accountability conducted an investigation into Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee after 9 officers filed complaints against him. Those complaints detailed a hostile work environment, name-calling, and nepotism. Human Resources sent the officers to Internal Affairs to file their complaints. But because Lee oversees internal affairs, the officers thought they couldn't trust the department and went to the Office of Police Accountability instead. Jesus Hara with the OPA recommended in a memo to Mayor McLean that Lee be placed on leave. He also recommended a third party do more interviews with the officers for the investigation. The follow-up interviews never happened, according to former BPD Captain Matt Bringleson.
To my knowledge, it didn't happen. I certainly wasn't interviewed again, so they may have just gotten rid of that idea altogether, but I didn't get talked to again.
He was one of the officers who filed a complaint this spring. He noted many reasons, but said the last straw was feeling like he was being pushed out.
So I served the city of Boise for almost 25 years, quarter century, over half my life. And it got to a point where I just couldn't come in every day anymore because it was just so hostile and caustic, and it was just impossible to function. So I got to a point where I had to reach out and get professional mental health counseling. And when I came back, I was being asked regularly, hey, how much longer are you going to stay? When are you going to quit? How much longer are you going to stay? It was clear that I wasn't wanted there anymore.
Former Captain Tom Fleming also felt like he was being pushed out and that his ideas and experience was unneeded. Fleming does not want his face on camera because of the job he's currently working.
I was in a meeting with the chief, and we were talking about an internal investigation, and he said, this is the way I want this done, and I wasn't really on board with it. I kind of put up a little bit of resistance, just professionally, just told him that the reason it was being done this way was this, and he said, I want it done this way, and that's it. And if this gets to be too much for you, you can go to Percy and look at your retirement options.
Boise Mayor Lori McLean told KTVB in an exclusive interview Friday that the department is asking for change.
Along with change, when we're asking officers to change the way they do some of their practices and to accept reforms that the council have passed, like no-knock warrants, strangleholds, use of force, body cams, and new training protocols, we need management that supports that change.
McLean said the public can be assured that they are still safe.
I can assure you, and I want to assure the public, that we're getting to the bottom of this. We're asking many questions. We've actively reviewed reports we've received, have commissioned third-party reviews, and provided and received feedback. We've looked at policies that needed to change, and we've set management expectations and will hold management accountable.
The mayor's chief of staff, Courtney Washburn, said the city did do its own investigation. In a statement to 7 Investigates, Washburn said she reviewed the information and asked for a third-party opinion. She wrote, That independent investigation determined that there was no violation of city or BPD policy or procedure that would support the action of administrative leave in regard to the chief of police. The investigation also indicated that several complaints were already under investigation by other agencies and or the Office of Internal Affairs. Bringleson said that 5 officers left under Lee, wiping out an entire command staff. And morale, Fleming said, seemed terribly low under the chief.
I had rank and file officers from guys that had been there for a couple years or less, all the way up to 25-year officers, to sergeants, lieutenants, other command members, and professional staff members, civilian employees of our department that would come in and literally sit in my office and cry about things that were going on.
In Fleming's 30-year career, he has never seen any officer continue working pending an investigation, criminal or not.
When this happened and he was not suspended, that really blew up the amount of people coming to my office and complaining, want to know why we had a particular employee who had allegedly done something. He was suspended for this alleged crime, but why is the chief not? And the only thing I could tell them is that when this first started, is the explanation that was given to me from city legal was that the chief has a different boss than the rest of you.
KTVB obtained emails from an internal source with BPD detailing how Chief Lee allegedly called his employees stupid and dumb, made employees cry, called Boiseans derogatory terms, and retaliated against certain officers who spoke out against him and favored officers he brought in from Portland in meetings. OPA investigated these complaints and documented it all in an entire binder's worth full of records. They recommended on April 5th that Lee be put on leave. The officers waited. When the officers asked OPA about the investigation, they were told on May 9th that the mayor had an outside counsel review the investigation. Jesus Hara wrote in an email to an officer, quote, "I was informed that the city has completed their review and it was determined that there were no violations of city BPD policy or procedure. The outside counsel did suggest an update to some policies and procedures to ensure clarity moving forward. The OPA office does not plan on investigating this further as it has turned into a personnel matter."
Please raise your right arm.
Bringleson said that when the chief was hired, he was ready to adapt to any decisions he would make and that he was actually very excited for the transition.
It was incumbent upon me to embrace change, and that's what I did at the beginning. As far as, were we disgruntled about it, I loved my job. I had the dream job. I had a fantastic career. I was nearing the twilight. It should have been the best time of my career. I was in what I consider to be the most important job a police officer can have. I was the patrol commander. I deeply cared about every one of the officers that worked for me, my K-9 units, my civilians that worked for me. I deeply cared and met with them regularly.
Even after retirement, Fleming and Bringleson, 2 veteran law enforcement officers, still love their teams and their BPD officers. They are sad that they have to leave them behind.
To be honest, I felt guilty for leaving when I did, because I felt like I was leaving some of these guys behind in that condition to basically fight on their own, so to speak. And so there's a lot of angst in that decision.
And Alexandra Duggan joins us live here on the 208. And Alex, I want to dig into some of the stuff you talked about in your story. Some might say that the officers that spoke to you and that complained, maybe they have an axe to grind. Maybe they have a personal problem with Chief Lee. Maybe there's only a couple of people that just didn't like the way the chief was really doing things when he came here from Portland. What insight do you have on that conversation about this being system-wide or a few people with an axe to grind?
Well, Joe, it's not just a couple officers who are disgruntled or upset. This is a lot of officers that have an issue with the alleged name-calling and belittling and hostile work environment that is taking place. And, Tom Fleming even said these officers would come into my office and cry. They would just cry to me about this. And, they felt that their concerns weren't being heard or wouldn't be heard because just of the politics surrounding the chief coming in from Portland.
And we heard from the mayor, and the mayor's office has said to us, they didn't find any reason to put Chief Lee on leave, in terms of city policy during the criminal investigation. I know we've seen questions today about, okay, well, why wasn't he put on leave? Was this unusual? Do officers usually get put on leave like this?
Right, so Fleming did tell me that this is unusual, especially we know that there was a criminal investigation that had taken place. Lee never faced charges for that, but Fleming did say it was unusual he wasn't placed on leave for that. It is unusual now because officers can be placed on leave for certain things like having a relationship with a confidential informant outside of work. They can be placed on leave for things like that, and Lee was never placed on leave.
And we know you spoke to the mayor here today, and these allegations, the situation, it is very serious, and the obvious question becomes, where does the city of Boise go from here? How do they reconcile these alleged incidents that's going on here? Did the mayor have any insight on where they go from here?
Well, Joe, the mayor did say that there was no policy violations for this investigation, so it wasn't really continued further. But she did say that it warrants further discussion. There will be further discussion with the Office of Police Accountability, the chief, the city, and the police union. And the public is going to be made aware of anything that happens in regards to this situation, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Alexandra Duggan here with us on the 208 on your Friday. She's going to keep digging into this story. It's far from over, but for now, we're going to step aside. The 208 continues right after this. Good luck. More Treasure Valley renters are looking for help to help them avoid eviction. Rental assistance nonprofit Jesse Tree tells us they're helping up to 40 clients facing an eviction in court every week, and that's twice of what they normally see. So it's up big. But even if Jesse Tree works to help someone pay their bills, there's no guarantee that the landlord will accept the payment, and legally they don't have to. What do you mean by this? Well, what does this look like for a real Idahoan? We spoke with Danette Brookshire, and she tells us that she lives in a trailer with her 3 kids. They own the physical building that they live in, but they do pay rent for the lot, the land they're living on. And times are tough. In the month of August, Danette says that her divorce was finalized, and she tells us that thankfully she's on very good terms with her ex-husband, but the process was very expensive. And she's further strapped for cash after she lost her job. Again, all in the month of August. So she reached out to St. Vincent de Paul for rental assistance and finally caught a break. They agreed to help her pay for rent for a whole month. But once St. Vincent de Paul went to pay the landlord said, no, I'm not accepting the money. They say the money has to come from Danette, not a third party.
Like, I literally don't, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I have someone here willing to pay my rent and you won't take the payment. I really don't understand it.
Unless the lease agreement says differently, usually the tenant is required to pay the rent, and landlords are not necessarily legally obligated to take money from somebody else.
And Andrew Bartline joins me right now. And Andrew, as 208 viewers know, you've been working on this story all week. And we touched on it and just heard from Ali Rabe with Jesse Tree in Boise how legally landlords do not need to accept rent from third parties. And some landlords simply say that they don't find the method reliable enough and they really want tenants that aren't at risk of missing payments. And we heard from landlords in recent days who said that we were being too hard on them here on Channel 7 and painting an unfair picture about the situation. Did they want to share their side of the story with you today? I know that you were reaching out to landlords to say, okay, what's the other part of the story?
Well, that's the tough part, Joe. For the last 48 hours, we've been trying to reach out to landlords and, of course, get their sides of the story. It's a process that sounds easy in practice, but I mentioned for the last 48 hours, it's what we've been trying to do. It can be very difficult when people don't want to speak with you, and we tried the day of as well. Couldn't get a landlord the day we ran that story too, at least not on camera, or at least not on the record. I have spoken with several landlords over the past couple days, over the phone, through email, through text message. We got several messages here at the station. Now, this is one that was a reaction to the story that Joe just mentioned. Now, it's a lengthy one. It's nearly 400 words. We'll try to break it down for you. So we'll start right at the top. It says, "Hi, I just saw your story about evictions and rental assistance. And as a landlord of over 220 doors that I operate, everything on my own, I can clearly say that you are biased in this story and not telling the full story of what a landlord goes through as what you would like to portray a tenant endures with rental assistance. The fact that you're saying most people apply for assistance one time and that's it, I find this highly incorrect." We got that information from Jesse Tree, to be clear. Now, the message goes on to say, "I would be curious to know as to why you do not include the fact that many landlords or owners do not want to work with the tenant that has also caused many issues or does not want to take care of the property to the standards of what their lease agreement reads. Once a tenant is having trouble providing the rent, the landlord has the option to have them out and start fresh with a better tenant that will not cause damage or many issues. Why would you not provide all angles?" Well, this was a message we got right after that story ran, Joe. And the difficulty is when people don't want to talk with you on camera, there's not a whole lot that we can do. You know, people will reach out to us and say that, "I want to talk to you about this problem or that problem." Okay, well, let's hear from you. Can you explain the nuance to us? You're someone who lives this experience. When these people won't talk to us, there's not a whole lot we can do. We know there's a deeper level to this story because landlords got bills too. They need their tenants to pay them. But if they're not willing to talk to us, we can't understand and explain that angle.
Well, again, the invitation's out there. If you're a landlord, Andrew would love to talk to you. But the 208 is going to step aside. We'll be back right after this.
After a couple of years, we're finally able to get back out on the Fit One course together tomorrow. Really looking forward to this race, and conditions really couldn't be better for any of the races, the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, whatever you've trained for, whatever you are ready or not for. Temperatures in the 50s for the 10K and the half marathon earlier in the morning with a 7:15, 7:30 start respectively, and then 9:30 start for the 5K with temperatures in the low to mid 60s for that race. Lots of sunshine to enjoy. And that is the case for the entire weekend all across the Gem State. A beautiful first weekend of fall with temperatures warming through the weekend and into next week. In fact, near 90 degrees by the middle of next week, some 10 to 15 degrees above seasonal averages for these final warm days of September.
Well, you want to talk about some cold days? How about November? 46 days until the November general election. But actually, the way things are going, Bree, it could be very hot that day. But anyways, you don't have to wait to cast your vote on November 8th. Oh no, Idaho offers early and absentee ballots. And if you requested an absentee ballot in Ada County, the news for you, it is on the way. Ada County elections began sending out ballots to voters today. So if you requested one in Ada County, you should see it in the mail the week of September 26th, which is next week. And if you're sitting at home, say, I would like to request a ballot. Well, you can go request an absentee ballot online at voteidaho.gov. The deadline to request an absentee ballot for the November general election is October 28th at 5 p.m. 208 returns right after this. Well, we haven't talked much, or at all, about a case that's taken a lot of national attention, and that includes books, a Dateline episode, a Netflix documentary. But something happened today that caught the attention of us here on the 208. A Fremont County judge has decided there will be no cameras in the courtroom for any further hearings regarding Lori Vallow. And if you're not up to speed here, Lori Vallow is the mother of Rexford kids JJ and Tylee. The remains were found on the property of Lori Vallow's fifth and current husband, Chad Daybell. The couple is now charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of Vallow's kids and Chad Daybell's late wife, Tammy Daybell. And the judge's decision comes after Vallow's attorneys filed a motion to ban cameras after they say Court TV set up multiple cameras and microphones in areas out of typical media locations, and they say that they zoomed in on Vallow multiple times, possibly violating attorney-client privileges. Now, KTVB, Channel 7, was among 30 other media outlets who joined to oppose the motion to ban cameras, but were unsuccessful. The couple's trial is scheduled for January of 2023 right here in Ada County. And on to Decision 2022. We talked about this earlier. The election's coming up in 6 weeks on Tuesday, November 8th. Voters across Idaho will head to the polls in the general election to decide who they want to represent them in key federal and state offices. And over the next 2 Sundays, our Sunday morning Viewpoint show will focus on the race for lieutenant governor here in Idaho between longtime Speaker of the House, Republican Representative Scott Bedke of Oakley, and Democrat Terry Pickens-Manweiler of Boise. Speaker Bedke is the guest this Sunday, Pickens-Manweiler the following week. Speaker Bedke had served in the Idaho House of Representatives since 2000 and as of Speaker since 2012, and he is actually the longest serving Speaker in Idaho's history. We asked him why he's giving up the powerful position to run for a part-time position of Lieutenant Governor.
I am well prepared to go into the executive branch where we execute, where we get things done. And you're not so much passing the laws, but you're executing that. And I think that my experience as a problem solver will be well suited for the executive branch.
How do you view the role of the lieutenant governor?
Well, I view it as I bring the same attitude and the same perspective as I bring to the speakership. There's nothing special about a state legislator other than we're in a position to help. We're in a position to solve problems. I have a proven track record of being able to mediate complicated issues and bring people together. And I think that that's what the office of the lieutenant governor needs to be.
Speaker Bedke also discusses his priorities and his stances on Idaho's strict new anti-abortion law and the $410 million in public education funding that the legislature approved in the recent special session. Viewpoint airs Sunday morning right here on KTVB. Well, let's put this show to bed. We're going to look at some of your comments here, and we'll start with this comment here, and I'll say, we're getting a lot of comments about the Boise police investigation story. This one from Samantha. Oh, sorry, this is from landlords. Samantha from Boise writes, here's a thought for landlords. Stop raising rent by a ridiculous amount, and people won't have to apply for assistance. That's a take from Samantha in Boise again. Our Andrew Bartline is still working on this story. So landlords, we've seen your messages. We want to talk to you. We want to share your side of the story. So thank you for the comment there, Samantha. What else we got here? Okay, so this is on the Boise police investigation we talked about at the top of the show. This person says they want to know if the officers complaining about BPD Chief Lee have had complaints about themselves in the past, asking for a city. Lori in Boise. Okay, so I'll tell you this, there's a lot of questions, there are a lot of things we don't know right now about the Boise police investigation, the situation alleged against Chief Lee. And our Alexandra Duggan, she's going to keep working and digging into the story with the 7 Investigates team. So keep sending in your questions like this one. We'd love to see them, but I don't have the answer to that right now, but I can tell you Alexandra is digging into it. And if you wanted to see the full story, if you missed the top of our show, you can go online to ktvb.com or the KTVB YouTube page. A few more comments, questions here, Katie? Oh yeah, we got this one. This person says, I thought Andrew Bartline announced he was leaving KTVB a couple months ago. Is he staying on the team after all? If Andrew announced he was leaving, that's news to me, but maybe he didn't tell me. We did say goodbye to one of our good friends, Tristan Lewis, recently, so that might be who you're talking about. They're both the same height. I confuse them all the time. Anyways, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.